Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday night workshop. I apologize for us being a little late. We had some technical struggles, but here we are. So thank you all for being here, everyone online. And thank you, everyone here, for being patient enough and listening to my yappy stories. Wanted to just make mention, June, we're into June now. I cannot believe half the year. We're already, 2018 is halfway gone. That just amazes me. This month, naturally, we have the omega-4 up, long-awaited omega-4. We are about halfway filled, so we need to start pushing the seats for that one. It's a 10-day program. I know people freak out because 10-day program, but it's really just a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you come back again for a Friday, Saturday, and the Sunday's only half day. It's not a full day there. But I really am very anxious and grateful to try it here at the Franciscan. We haven't done it, and those of you who've done the omega-4, you know we need the 2 rooms and everything. So I'm curious to see how this is going to work. But I'm anxious. I'm really excited to do it too. Tonight's topic, the idea is, do you use your moral compass? I came across this quote, which I found quite amazing. Well, funny, just because I was just telling everybody here how I've been watching the DC comic Marvel movies to prepare myself to see Infinity War. My son gave me a list, 18 movies, to watch them all in order. And so I've got heroes and villains. The only thing that separates them is the moral compass. And as a matter of fact, in some of the movies, a bad guy ends up being a good guy, and a good guy ends up being a bad guy. Like sometimes they play a villain and then sometimes they play the good guy. And you can kind of watch the way that things unfold. You know, they're not really truly my cup of tea watching these movies, but I do it with my son. That's the one thing that we share, which I like. And so the plots are very obvious. It's the good versus evil. Very ancient. Everyone understands that. But I love the idea, the twist of trying to figure out who is actually going to be bad and ends up being good. And it confuses you because they start out as a bad person and all of a sudden they do something good and you're like, what just happened? And I think that's true because we all have a moral compass. So we could start out on the path of not being virtuous and end up being virtuous because our moral compass kicks in. One of the movies, of all the movies I was thinking about today, I knew I had to come here. My far has been Doctor Strange, mostly because it wasn't as violent. I mean, really bad, gory violence. But I love the concept. A very arrogant, egotistical doctor ends up losing his hands and can't use them, travels off to the Far East to mysticism and finds his true calling, which I love. I really do love. And then the idea of the time shifting, I think that's a fantastic concept as well, which I then found out the Infinity Stone of Time is what Doctor Strange had. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Anyway, when I was thinking about the Marvel, there's so many different Avengers and how they all have their support and the villains that go against each of them, and each one's got a buddy, like their number one person that they're with. The person I thought of the most, who's the most integral, is Captain America. Has anyone seen the original Captain America? Okay, good. Then I can botch the story up and you won't know. So the original Captain America, he is the ultralistic, I think that's the correct word, integral soldier. Always do the right thing. Never a doubt in his mind. He's not going to veer no matter what you say, no matter what to do. No, always going to do the right thing. To me, I think that's a great picture of what it's like to show, to give an example of someone who's integral or has a moral compass. No matter what cost, no matter what's going to happen to him, no matter what the consequence, he will always follow his moral compass. And then everyone around him knows that. As a matter of fact, he ends up being the Cap. He's like the leader of the Avengers because he always is the one who's going to stick to the moral code. I think it's essential that as human beings, we follow a code. The military has the code of conduct. Well, any organization that you go to, sometimes there's actually a code of conduct that you sign. When you go into the organization, HR will go through and review, here's the ins and outs of how to work in this, blah, blah, blah. So you have your code of conduct. I think it's important that as an individual, we all establish a moral code of conduct, moral values. Now, let me back up for a moment and think about the idea of a moral compass. So I wanted to find the definition of a compass. When I went to the dictionary and looked up compass, I had totally forgotten. I was thinking of the magnetic compass that you hold, like a hiker, and it always points to north. But I forgot in elementary school in geometry, that thing that you jam into the desk and you spin it around, that's a compass. And the idea, the definition of a compass is a tool with two pointed legs connected by a hinge, one end with a writing device used as a stable pivot. I love that word, stable pivot. It's stable, secure, in order to be able to create a circle, but the center never moves. The second definition is the one that I thought of, was the magnetic needles used for direction, and it's always facing north. The needle always points to north, the true magnetic North Pole, which should never move. Even in 2012, when the Mayan calendar, Earth ships are going to pole, never moved. So it always goes to the north. That gives us stability. And then the compass is actually defined as a verb as well, which I was very surprised at. This means, the definition of a compass means to understand, grasp, or fulfill. So if I have a compass, I understand a concept, which I never knew that it could be used that. So that was inspiring for me to learn something today. I like the term stable pivot. Essentially, it means a strong point of center. Now, in omega-4, I was just talking about omega-4, we talk about a fixed point. In omega-4, we actually do talk about a fixed point. We have a little bit of a lecture and activity on it. Without disclosing too much, the fixed point means there's something inside of us. We could just boil it down to one thing that cannot be bought, budged, or moved. That's our fixed point. We could try to cover it up and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's always going to pop up. It's always going to say, So every human being has at least one fixed point that they will not, or they struggle to deviate from. Now, when I think about the idea of the magnetic compass or the actual compass that you put into play, it comes to the idea of knowing that we have that thing that we can center ourselves. It's like centering who we are. It brings us back to center. As I said, we can have different types of compass. We can have a religious compass. We can have an ethical compass. We can even have a logical moral compass. Kudos to Spok. The logic. What does he do that? Yeah. Live long and prosper. That's the logical compass, where there's logically we think, well, this goes that, and then, or we can have an emotional compass. Well, how does it feel right? Intuitive. What does my intuition tell me to do? So the compass, the moral compass, is what I'm really bringing us down to, is the idea of what guides us and grounds us and gives us center, purpose, inspiration, fulfillment. Those are some of the things that I was thinking of when it comes to being in a compass. Now, how do we determine what our compasses are? Well, we can determine a compass by the people who are in our lives. Perhaps our parents, our teachers, family members, organizations that we become involved in, church, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Although I hear they're not calling that anymore. They're going to change the title for that. I don't remember, but no. Anyway, don't want to go off there. So I was thinking of that compasses actually can lead us to our values. I could use the word moral compass and values, I would say. So values. Well, of course, in Omega, we have the 4 core values: love, trust, truth, and giving. But I'm going to throw a little bit more here. I would say there's values of love, integrity, honesty, harmlessness, loyalty, compassion, and willpower. These are all things that we can consider a moral compass and characteristics of someone who has a moral compass. So going back to the concept of Captain America, he is a very loyal individual. The concept of him was very loyal, integral, honest. He also was harmless as much as possible, compassionate, and had an incredible amount of willpower. So these can be a moral compass, and they also can be characteristics of somebody who has a moral compass. They're kind of interchangeable. It's one of those paradoxes. Go with it. Mark and I have been watching 12 Monkeys. The series, has anybody seen this one? The 12 Monkeys. It's a little, it has to do with time. It's somebody from the future who travels back to the past to try to prevent a worldwide plague that wiped out almost the entire human population. Anyway, it goes back and forth and how things are changing. But the idea is, again, this character has a moral compass. So I started thinking about, if you look at the books that you read, there probably is a character in there that has a moral compass that we're drawn to, if you're reading a story. One of my favorite series that I got stuck on was, Susan King had given me these books. No, yeah, I think so. One of my clients had actually recommended. It's, I'm going to forget. Tower of Glass. It's about a young girl, 16-year-old assassin, who ends up being a good person. So she ended up not killing anymore, or only killing the bad people. I think they call that the reverse evils. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I was thinking about, in books, we always are drawn to, or at least I'm drawn to, the person who has the moral compass. Movies that we watch, somebody who has a moral compass. Again, our parents. They instill their values to us, and that's how we determine what our moral compass is. Our teachers are very influential. If you think about it, when you were growing up, you spent 8 hours a day in a classroom with a teacher. That person's influence or beliefs became an influence on you. And as little children, especially in elementary school, we became very attached to our teachers. And we got to high school, we hated them. But as little children, we loved our teachers. Those are, they're the great people there. They loved us and loved to play with us. So our parents, our teachers, our environment can be a moral compass. If you're around an environment, I was trying to think about, people who get involved in softball or football or game sports. There's an environment about a moral compass. Like if you play a group sport, as opposed to a solo sport. A lot of companies actually like employees who actually play team sports, because you understand the concept of team playing, as opposed to just an individual sport like golf. That's an individual sport. Nothing wrong with golf, but it's not a team sport where you all support each other and everyone has a specific role to have the whole entire team succeed. That's what companies look for, corporations look for. So what I wanted to do is take a moment and just break down all the different ideas of what a moral compass would be and how they can affect us in our lives. So let's go with the very first one, love. If love is your moral compass, that means what you do is filled with love. Everything that you do is filled with love. Your thoughts are filled with love, your words are filled with love, your actions are filled with love. You are an expression of love. If you have a moral compass of love, you always come back to the concept of love. Love is such an elusive word. It's hard to put your finger on it. We all know what it means, but what do we really mean when it comes to love? In Omega, we talk about the 4 different levels of love. We have the eros love, the agape, philios, and what's my 4th one, somebody? Agape, it's pia. It's the pia. Eros, pia, philios, and agape love. I usually use the illustration in the classroom that I could say, I love you. You don't know if I mean I love you like I love Starbucks, or I love you because I just came out of a training and I love everybody, or I'm from California and you say I love you all the time. Like nobody really knows when it comes to love. So the idea of love is very elusive, but we all understand what it means. We understand that intimate love, we understand that connection, we understand finding the value of another individual, inspiring, encouraging people, celebrating their success. That's all elements of love. It's such a huge topic. I don't want to go that deep. But I do know that when we find love as our moral compass, it's that feeling of a connection that's so deep it can't be explained, but that's what motivates us. It enables us to climb mountains. It enables us to cross arid deserts, or to take on an obstacle that I may not want to, but because the person I love wants to do it, I'm going to do it. I'll do it for them. That's what it means when it comes for love as a moral concept. It can inspire us. It enables us to overcome obstacles. It can fuel us. I have fuel. I'm fueled by love. When our actions are based on love, we're far more patient. When you're around children, your children, we love them and we're patient with them. We understand. So understanding comes into play when we have love. Compassion, forgiving. When I have love, I can forgive. I can forgive my child when they take this, my granddaughter especially. She used to take her sandwich and put it in the VCR player. That was funny. Take a little peanut butter and jelly sandwich right in the VCR. Oh, this looks like a good place. And I think it's because they had the easy bake oven stuff that you just slide things into. Come on in. I think it's 'cause, so I think she saw that, so she's like, oh, I'll just put it in the little thing right there. Just walk right there. Go ahead. We're all going to stare at you. So that's what it means when it comes to love. The second one, which is integrity, or the next one that I picked was integrity. When I have a moral compass of integrity, there's something about an integral individual that draws out inspiration and courage in others. Or it's like a beacon. That's the one that you can count on. It elicits trust like that. When you have an integral individual, you know you can trust them. They're going to get the job done. And you actually, most leaders have a very strong, integral moral compass. You know they're going to do what they say. So when it comes to integrity, this is when our actions match our words. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I don't do it, I end up negotiating about it. Hey, need to renegotiate. This didn't really work out for me. When I have integrity, it's the cornerstone of personal accountability. When I have integrity, I'm personally accountable for my actions. I also have a strong sense of integrity. I am confident and courageous. Because I know I'm going to try it, I'm going to get it done. If not, we'll make it work. We'll find a way. It's the willpower kind of person. We're going to make it work. So when I have integrity, it's, I like to say it's one of those core threads that runs through an individual that's very difficult to break. If you have a strong moral compass, it's very difficult to break. An integral person is not somebody who's going to embezzle. An integral person is not somebody who's going to manipulate the environment or is not going to try to harass individuals. An integral person doesn't do that. An integral person, it's difficult for them to lie. They can't really persuade people by lying. They'll state the facts. An integral person is a very factual individual as well. The next moral compass I was thinking of is honesty. When you have a moral compass of honesty, which my younger brother says that I can't lie. I'm terrible at lying. That's why I used to get in trouble a lot, because I couldn't lie. You could see it on my face. I'm not very good at lying. I even do this today. With my son especially, I'll look at him and I'll try to say something as a lie, and he just looks at me and goes, "You're lying, aren't you?" And I'm like, yeah, I just crack up laughing. I just can't lie. It's just, so my brother says that honesty is one of my integral things because I'm not a good liar. So telling the truth can be a very difficult task because, you know, there's the potential of hurting somebody. Now, those of you who've been in Omega with me, you know I don't have a problem with that. I can hold you accountable, and I can talk to you very truthfully and honestly. I'm not too concerned on whether or not you like me, so that probably goes along. It might go a little further. That sounded harsh, didn't it? Sorry, back up. I really do like you. I'm just kidding. But when it comes to integrity, that they really, integral people, honest people, sometimes speak the truth too honestly. Have you ever been around someone who's too honest? Thank you, and you want to tell them to thank you, I'll see you in a month or a year, because that's a little harsh to take on. However, honesty can be very helpful for us, because it's not just telling the truth, it's being a truthful or transparent individual. When you're honest, you're not hiding things. You're not putting things behind someone's back or making them look a different way so that you can get what you want. That's not what an honest person does. An honest person is very transparent. Here's my motives, this is what I'm going to do, here's our goals, these are my objectives. They have good communication. An honest person really can communicate quite well. People understand what they're speaking and what their intentions are. Honesty is very simple. Very simple quality. We all know this as children. If you've ever been around kids, little kids, they speak truth and they don't care. Mommy, that person is fat. Mommy, that person smells. We're the ones who get embarrassed, but it's to them, it's natural. It's just what we do. You just speak up until we learn not to speak like that. Honesty is also a very magnetic quality. If you've ever been around an individual who's honest, it's comforting to be around them because you know you're going to get the truth. If you want to work on your feedback, if you want to work on yourself, go to an honest person. You know they're not going to hold anything back. They're going to tell you like it is. Then you have harmlessness, the next quality of a moral compass. A lot of these seem to intertwine. Like love can go through all of them. Honesty, integrity seem to match up a bit too. Harmlessness is the same thing. It connects with love. But the idea of harmlessness, simply put, it means to do no harm. The intention to do no harm. Even though I might harm you unintentionally, it is not my intention. There's a difference between intentionally harming an individual and unintentionally harming an individual. It's very, very important. When you intentionally harm an individual, that is causing upset, anger, resentment, judgment. It causes injury, pain, and suffering. Most of the time when we intentionally harm an individual, it's because we're injured. We're reacting. I don't like what you did, so I'm going to speak in words of anger or upset. I'll retaliate. That's most of the time when we do that. This oftentimes is connected to emotions. If I have a low EQ and emotional intelligence, if I'm low, I'm going to be reactive. I'm going to want to make you hurt because you hurt me. It's very childish. And I don't mean to be dismissive like it's very childish, but what I mean is it's a very low level of emotions. It's very reactive. What we have to do is learn how to hold on to that. Take a deep breath. Recognize, okay, if they hurt me, it's not, maybe they didn't intend to, maybe they did. I don't need to do the same thing. I can rise above that and make a choice. That's having my emotional compass. The idea that I can pull myself back and say, well, this is the type of person I want to be. So when it comes to honesty, as I said, there's no hidden agendas, no expectations, no guilt trips. And as I said, I'm sorry, I'm on harmlessness, aren't I? I apologize. Harmlessness means to intentionally do no harm. It allows us to be aware of our actions, which is what I mentioned before. I'm aware. Harmlessness brings about consciousness and the ability to choose peaceful, cooperative path. Gandhi is what I think about. I can't think of any other person in history that was such an exemplary picture of harmlessness. I mean, there's lots of Jesus, Buddha, but Gandhi is the one that captures my attention because he was literally faced with men with clubs ready to kill, and they marched peacefully for peaceful confrontation or peaceful conflict. When it comes to harmlessness, it's connected to foresight. So harmlessness means I'm aware of my actions and I have foresight, meaning I can say, if I do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, that's going to happen. So I start having, logic comes into play, but I can also understand the consequences of my actions and my words. That's harmlessness. That would have a moral compass there. Then we have loyalty. Of course, I've been talking about the Marvel guys, so I'm just going to mention this. In the Marvel movie Captain America, he has a friend, Bucky, and Bucky is his loyal friend. And Bucky says to him, I'm with you to the end of the line. Meaning like a train. You know, I'm gonna with you to the end of the line. No matter what, I'm to the end of the line. That's loyalty. No judgment, you're loyal. Loyalty is like people, you own dogs. Everyone knows about a dog or a cat. When you have your dog, a dog is very, very loyal. You can be abusive, mean, and angry, and they're still loyal to you. Until you beat, you know, like some of them, you can push them to one end, but most of the time they're very, very loyal. Loyalty is, if we use the illustration of a dog, there's no expectations. There's no, hey, I woke you up today, so walk me now. There's none of that. There's no retaliation from loyalty. Loyalty is they're just there. What do you need? Got it, done. That's what loyalty is. Always there. Just unconditional. Unconditional loyalty is what I think of. When I think about loyalty, it's through thick or thin. Now, for me, I would say loyalty is one of my moral compasses. I am a very loyal individual. Once you get into my circle, and there's a lot of requirements in interviews, I will say. Kidding. But once I feel that connection and that loyalty to you, I don't budge. I mean, and I'm not trying to be arrogant about this, but think about it. I've been in Omega for 28 years. I walked in the door. I knew this is where I wanted. That's it. I haven't moved. That's loyalty to me. When my friends, I'm loyal to them through thick or thin. Doesn't matter if I haven't talked to you in 5 years. I'm still going to pick up where I left off. I'm loyal. That's how I am, is loyalty. I would say, personally, I would pick loyalty as my moral compass that I would go to. I was very, very loyal to George, obviously, as well. One of the things I was thinking of because this is the month he passed away, and as a matter of fact, we're going to start Omega-4 the day after he passed away. But 6 years ago, it's been 6 years already. That's amazing. In his late stages of Parkinson's, he ended up with dementia. And with dementia, people don't know who you are, and they get reactive. And so here's this gentleman who I've been taking care of now for almost 8 years, and he's screaming and yelling at me, "Who are you? Why are you here? I want to go home," trying to throw me down the stairs. And it would have been easy to just walk away. You know, I don't need this. I'm not getting paid for this, blah, blah, blah. But as a loyal individual, it helped me recognize, you know what, that's not George, that's the disease. When you have loyalty, we can overlook what's happening now because we know something greater. So as I said, it's not George, it's the disease. So I'm not reacting to the behavior right there. I'm remembering the person who's behind it. That's what loyalty means. When you have loyalty, we overlook things. Not that we say, oh, don't worry about it, take advantage of me. We understand the struggle. As a loyal individual, you understand somebody's struggle, and you have the ability to support them. And, you know, I don't want to take this one step further, but if you have a family member who goes to prison or does something that breaks the law, you don't write them off. You might not agree with their actions, but they're still, you still got their back. You're going to support them. They go to prison, hey, I'm going to come visit you, I'm going to write to you, whatever you need, and you be their moral compass. That's what loyalty would be. So to me, loyalty is a very a strong one in my life. It gives others strength and courage. When you're loyal to them, they can be very strong and courageous as well. Conscious loyalty can provide feedback and guidance to our loved ones. When I'm consciously loyal to you, I may not support what you're doing, and I might say, hey, are you aware that you're about to do X, Y, and Z, and this is going to happen? That's what conscious loyalty means. Again, you can thread that in with honesty as well. So a loyal, honest individual can be quite brutal, is what I would say. Then we have compassion. Compassion, when I think of compassion, that's the number one word I would use to describe George. The most compassionate individual I've ever met. Compassion has everything to do with others. Truly, there is no ego involved in compassion. Compassion is completely and totally for the individual in front of us, and that was George. He was the most compassionate man I've ever met. I cannot tell you how many people would walk away from a conversation with George and feel like they were his best friend. That was George, because it was always about the individual, making a contribution to them. One of my favorite stories of George is when he was in surgery, 2007, I think, when he broke his hip. The first time he was in surgery, he woke up from anesthesia in the recovery room, and I am not kidding you, word for word, he looks up, looks around the room, looks at me and Susan and says, I have to make a contribution to the citizens of this community, and then closes his eyes and goes back to sleep in the recovery room. Like, he doesn't even know where he is, but you know, it's his first thought. What can I do? How can I make a contribution to these people? And then back to sleep he went. We just laughed out loud. We looked at each other and said, what did he just say? And I wrote it down. I'm like, I have to write that down. That was really, really good. But that was him. It's always about others. A compassionate individual is an individual who sees what other needs. He can see what other can need. What can I benefit? How can I make a contribution to you? It leads us to acceptance and empathy and service. So when I have compassion, I accept people for what they're doing. I accept you as you are. I have empathy. I feel your struggle and your pain. And it leads us to be of service. How can I help you? Compassionate people have a tendency to be less aggressive and more judgment-free. So I'm less aggressive and I don't really have much judgment, which George really didn't. I did not witness much judgment from him. Then the last one that we mentioned is willpower. Willpower, I'm going to flip this into not just willpower like I'm going to make it happen, but I think of willpower as inner strength. When somebody has a strong will, they have a great deal of inner strength. Now, inner strength, this is necessary because if I wish to follow my moral compass, I have to have the strength to say yes against adversity or no against adversity. I have to have that strength. That's willpower. I'm not just talking about the ability to not drink Starbucks for 4 months, 3 days, and 2 hours. That's willpower. Going on a diet is willpower. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about that inner code of conduct. That ability to say, this is what needs to be done, and move. Even if everyone says no, I still go. because I know this is the right thing to do. That's what willpower means. That's the kind of willpower I'm talking about. It's a great quality. It urges us to do the right thing, and that sounds so judgmental. I'd like to switch the word right to alignment. It urges me to do the thing that I feel the most in alignment with. That's what willpower is. It encourages me to continue on no matter what the consequences or the cost, to continue on. Knowing what is in alignment, this has to get done, I'm going to do it. Even if it means people are going to dislike us, or you might lose your job, you still do the right thing. Whistleblowers, that's an alignment. The latest one that we've had is the Me Too. All these people, as a matter of fact, I was just talking to my husband this morning, like what's happened with that now? It was a big thing, the Me Too, and sexual harassment, and Matt Lauer, and Harvey Weinstein, and a number of other individuals that have like dropped off of the face of the earth now. But what happened to them? Are there consequences that they're suffering, or has it just been, moved on to the next subject? But back to my point, willpower. That gives the woman strength to say, hey, this is unacceptable. And I think it was, I can't remember. I think it was a young actress who called out Harvey Weinstein. And that's how it all started. She said, oh my gosh, called her mom. Look what this guy, and she turned him down and then went in. I think that's what the accurate, but I don't recall necessarily. Anyway, willpower it enables us to break through temptations. And I have willpower. Starbucks, chocolate, ice cream, Zoyos. I can go on. Cheesecake, coffee cake, apple pie, sleeping in. Anyway, that's willpower. Now, when it comes back, I'm going to just review these again. These are the ideas. These are the things that I would consider would be pretty universal ideas of moral compass. And we don't have to just have one. You can have more than one moral compass, one of these things that you gravitate to. So I have love, integrity, honesty, harmlessness, loyalty, compassion, and willpower. Now, if I'm an individual, I grew up on the planet, and I've got people who instill these wonderful moral compasses in me, what causes me to stray away from my moral compass? Why do I decide I don't want to follow it anymore?
Desire.
Huh?
Desire.
Desire is an excellent one. Desire. There could be a greater...
Event.
An event can cause me to do it.
Other people.
Other people, peer pressure would be wonderful. Not wonderful, but that's a good answer. Peer pressure.
Another one of the morals supersedes it.
I have a different moral that oversees what I would have done. And
Or harmlessness.
harmlessness
may
was...
put you in a position where you may not want to be honest.
Okay, because I want to practice harmlessness, so I'm not going to be honest. All right. That makes sense. Anyone else? Thank you for everybody online who's sending one in, but I can't see it, so okay. But when I come, those are really good. When I think about it, it seems like it's a no-brainer question, like why would we give up? I mean, if I have a moral compass, why would I give it up? But there are things that can tempt us. Temptation is a great one. Temptation can lead myself astray. Hardships can lead myself astray. Many people who embezzle, it's based on hardships. They have access to money, it's right there, and I'm going to pay it back. And 90% of people who embezzle have the intention to fully pay it back. As a matter of fact, they keep records because they really intend to pay it back. And then they just get more in debt and more in debt and more in debt, and then slowly they're in quicksand and they can't breathe anymore. But anyway, so some of the things that cause us to go against our moral compass, I'll go with what Cinda said. We want to be harmless, right? So perhaps maybe I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Well, instead of not being honest, I actually lie. That looks okay. And I'll lie. Or, I didn't see you do that. And well, just because I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So I'll tell a little lie. And then I don't feel that conflict, so then I'll tell a little lie again and then lie again. And then before I know it, lying becomes second nature. So it's easy to tell a lie now. I mean, I'm assuming that's how it works, but people who can lie, I've met liars that are so incredibly convincing, you just sit there and go, what? And then when you find out what really happened, what? It's like mind blowing. So when it comes to lying, we lie because We don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. We justify it because we say, oh, well, I didn't want to cause them pain. So I just told a little lie. It's okay. Sometimes we lie to cover ourselves up. Oh, I wasn't looking at that guy. I don't have to actually worry about that. Mark knows I love firemen, so we'll actually be out, and he'll go, look, Anne-Marie, fireman. First time he did that, my daughter was with us. She goes, Dad! It was funny. But, sometimes we get jealous or we feel insecure or we lie. I didn't look at them, or, hey, I saw you checking them. No, I didn't. We just tell lies. We can lie because based on past experiences. Let's say that you've had somebody who used to hover all the time, and you've got a text coming in and it's from an ex and they don't want you to see it. So you go, oh no, it's my mom. Or sometimes we lie. I don't want to say lying is all bad, but sometimes we do lie. If you're trying to plan a surprise party and the person walks in, what are you doing? Nothing. That could be an innocent lie. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking when we intentionally lie because we don't want to cause hurt to them, or we don't want to be hurt. So we lie. That's one reason why we drift away from our moral compass. I mentioned the idea of embezzling. Embezzling causes us to drift away. Obviously, stealing causes us to drift away. Stealing, sometimes that's what ends up happening. Dr. Zhivago, has anybody seen? I cannot believe I'm quoting this movie. George loved this movie. I tried to watch it twice, not once, twice. I couldn't. I kept falling asleep in it. Very long. It's about the Russian Revolution, and people are starving, but people are in there stealing wood because there's no wood fire to keep wood for the fire, to keep it burning, to keep people warm. So people are fighting. People steal food and whatnot. So the series I was telling you, the 12 Monkeys, same thing. It's an apocalypse and people are killing for food. Okay, I get it. We're not there, thankfully. But sometimes that's what ends up happening. We have to cross our values for survival. Then I mentioned the people with low EQ. Emotional intelligence. I happen to know somebody, several people in management, upper management, who have terrible tempers, scream and yell and yell and yell and scream, and they get away with it because it's the director or the upper manager or the CEO. So they get away with it. People just roll their eyes and leave the meeting and complain behind the person's back, but nobody will say anything to them. Well, this is actually detrimental. When you have somebody who gets away with screaming and yelling, what are they going to do? Continue to scream and yell and cause pain. And they're not being harmless, they're being harmful because no one's calling them on the carpet. So sometimes power can give us, we were just talking about this morning. When somebody is in a powerful position, I don't have to follow the rules. Don't you know who I am? So it goes to their head. Unfortunately, we see a lot of that in Hollywood. It just goes to their head. I don't have to follow that. I love the one time when, I think it was Mel Gibson got pulled over for being drunk, and he was just screaming all these anti-Semitic things at the cop. You don't know who I am. Blah, blah, blah. Or do you remember, you guys probably don't know who Zsa Zsa Gabor is. Remember that? Oh, you guys do. Zsa Zsa Gabor. She slapped a cop because he pulled her over, so she just smacked the cop like, So sometimes power and ego gets to our head, and we feel like we don't have to follow our moral compasses anymore. There are students who are required not to put 100% in. I only know this because I know some teachers that say to their kids, oh, don't worry about it. If you don't pass the test, you can take it as many times as you want until you do. Thinking they're doing a service to their kids. They're not. My argument was, but that means my son doesn't have to study because he knows he can take it again. So there's no structure, there's no discipline. He doesn't have to develop willpower because, I'll just take it again. I don't comprehend that, but and it's more than one. It wasn't just one teacher. There's been several teachers that I've known, and not just my kids, but I've known and had conversations with teachers who feel like that's the way to teach. Like, you want to build them up. I was having a discussion this morning because one of the news stories was a girl in New Jersey got cut from a cheerleading squad, and her mother was quite upset, so she, reported in, called in or whatnot, and put such a fuss that the cheerleading squad opened it up and said, okay, everybody can be on the team. Like, I'm sorry, you have somebody who can do 5, 6 backflips and one person who can't even do a cartwheel, but hey, everybody is on the, I don't understand that. And then I really love the newscasters. There was 3 of them, and they were bantering, going, what the heck is going on with our society? I mean, being cut is one of the best things that you can do. It helps you lead for improvement, find out what's not working, and you could get to become a better person. Greatest lessons is when we don't succeed. I mean, they made really good sense. And I was sitting there thinking, how would I feel if that was my mom? Like if I'm the teenager and my mom's the one who called in and got me on the team, would I actually want to go on the team then? Because those girls are going to really be mean to me because now I'm on the team and they didn't want me there in the first place. Sometimes I think we do disservice to our children when we interfere because we don't want to hurt them. But anyway, that's the idea about the teachers who don't let their kids, don't worry about it. So just as we can get lost in the woods or the jungle of the corporate world, we can lose our moral compass in the corporate world very easily. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the easiest places to lose our moral compass in the corporate world. There's high pressure. There's being overworked and underpaid when we live in the corporate world. I think about, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people who say, that person takes a longer lunch than everyone else. They're always out for an hour and a half. Why do I have to be here for an hour? And before you know it, this person starts taking an hour and a half lunch too. And now we have people out of integrity because one person gets away with it, I should get away with it. So we look out and we see what other people are doing and we justify not keeping our moral compass. Why should I? Everyone else is doing it. Why should I be the only one? That sometimes can lead us to it. Sometimes you can have pressure from management to cause a moral compass. Look, no one's going to find out about this. You need to sign this document so we can move forward. Don't worry about it, just do it. Sometimes there's that pressure, or, hey, you'll get a promotion if you do X, Y, Z. And sometimes that's what people do. If you're motivated by money and you need the promotion, sometimes that's what we end up doing. So I don't want to make it be like it's bad that we break our moral compasses. It happens. It happens. Please do not assume that I've never broken my moral compass. I grew up in a very strict, disciplined family. When I turned 18 and went to college, do you think I maintained that very strict discipline philosophy? Of course not. I went to the opposite direction. It's like a pendulum. If you hold it here for 18 years and let it go, is it just going to go like that? No, it's going to swing completely and totally to the other side, which I did. And then eventually you're going to gravitate back towards what works for us. Almost everybody does this. When you go out on your own, you figure out what works. We find the things that some things our parents told us, yeah, that does work, or some things, now that's a little old-fashioned. I'm going to adjust it accordingly. That's pretty much what we do. So don't assume that I have such a such a immaculate moral compass life. Even today I'm not, well, yeah, I am, I'm kidding. No, I'm not. But that's the idea, is that we have something to strive for. Having our moral compass, I love the idea of striving. It's one of the virtues that Torkham talked about. Striving, it's the desire to increase, to continue forward, to continue working, expanding, striving, putting my life, my effort, my soul into everything that I'm doing. That's what striving would be. Now when it comes to, as I said, the co-workers, we have to be careful here. Remember I said there was a thin line between, or I didn't say that, but I'm going to allude to it. There's a thin line between a villain and a hero. It's that moral compass. Well, the same is true. If I have moral compass, I have to be careful not to become the judge. It's very easy for me as a moral compass. Well, you should be doing this, and you shouldn't be doing that. And before I know it, I'm the hall monitor. Oh, that person's doing that. That person's not doing that. The Mrs. Kravitz of the neighborhood. We had this one woman in our townhouse community. When I had a townhouse on Central Avenue, it turned into a rental for me, but when I lived there, I'm not kidding, this woman with a clipboard every morning walking around writing down all the infractions. Oh, that person has a towel hanging from the railing. Oh, and that. Now I understand that you're wanting to keep the community looking beautiful. I get that. I totally do get that. But there's a limit. Please, there's a limit. I had my door open for 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. So we have to be mindful not to turn into the Mrs. Kravitz. Everyone know who Mrs. Kravitz is? Does anybody know what show that was from? What show was it?
Bewitched.
Bewitched. So it was the woman who lived across the street who was always peeking out her window, seeing what was going on, taking notes, who's doing what. It's very funny. Anyway, when we have our moral compass, we have to remember not to appoint ourselves the judge and the jury. Ooh, Siri's talking to me. A judge and a jury.
Okay. I'll
Siri just told me who the judge and the jury were. Anyway, we have to make sure that we don't become that hall monitor or the company snitch. What happens is our attention starts becoming focused on catching people instead of inspiring people. And that's the difference. When I have a moral compass, I'm not about trying to catch you. I want to inspire you. When I have a moral compass, it's more about me doing what I can do and not trying to get you to do. Like, I should never try to impose or force my beliefs or opinions on you. My moral compass works for me. Your moral compass works for you. So here, this leads us to another thought. The idea is to be careful that when I have a moral compass, I have to make sure that I have humility. It's a dangerous habit to judge, so I have to be humble. This leads me to my last one. I have just a couple minutes to fill this in. So humility is simply more than not being led by my ego. Humility allows others to have their own expression. We offer guidance only if we're asked. Have you ever met an individual who constantly tells you what to do? Oh, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Constantly does that. That's because they need to feel valuable. And so they're constantly. Now, when we have a moral compass, we don't have to react to that. We can smile. Thanks, Dad. Oh, I didn't mean that. But that's what we do. We could just be grateful instead of reacting. Oh, here we go again. We don't need to say that. It's like, oh, thank you. And understand that they're just trying to make a contribution. But the idea is, with humility, you don't give a guidance unless they ask you. Don't give guidance. Let them have their experience. Now, as parents, we're responsible for our children until they reach the age of responsibility. But once they reach that age, hands off. They're responsible now. If they come for guidance, give it. If not, smile and be supportive. That's all we can do. Truly, that's one thing. A humble person is one who strives to make a contribution to others as a whole, not just themselves. So a humble person has the ability to admit when they're wrong and the courage to fix the situation. As a humble person, oh, you know, right? I apologize. Yeah, that is correct. And how can I make this better? That's what... It's not about me and my ego and I'm always right no matter what. No. A humble person knows, oh yeah, you're right. I didn't do that. Or I said I was going to and it didn't come through. You're right. But be careful not that you're right is flippant. Well, you're right, of course, again. That's emotional. That's not what we're talking about. Linda and Dave just looked at each other like, see? Sorry. Linda, I'll get one for you, I promise. So a humble person is one who strives to make a contribution to the whole. I mentioned that already. Leads me to the next point. As a result of having a moral compass, we develop a personal accountability. And here's where we discover the cause and effect in our lives. One of my favorite quotes, I am the author of every next moment. Chris Prentice wrote that. I am the author of every next moment. No matter what unfolds, no matter what's happening, I'm the author. That gives me personal accountability and personal responsibility. Therefore, I have no one to blame. I have no one to throw guilt at. It's all me. When I discover that, I have that willpower. That's really one of the fires that feed willpower, my personal accountability. I'm responsible for how I interact with the world. I am not responsible for how you interact with the world. I'm only responsible for how I interact with the world. No matter how many times I want my husband to do what I want him to do, I'm not responsible for his actions. He's responsible for his actions. I'm not responsible for my children or my parents. They are responsible. They're all grown. So they're responsible for that. I'm only responsible for me and my actions. Naturally, as I said, we want to teach our kids guidance. That's the thing. Now consider this. When I veer off course in a boat or an airplane, there's an automatic pilot. The automatic pilot kicks in and brings me back on course. For those of you who have ever traveled or planned a trip, you know that if you're off by a degree, if I start here and I'm off by 1 degree and I continue forward just by that 1 degree, In a few steps, I'm going to be greatly off of my original course. So that's what the automatic pilot's for. It brings us back. That's what my moral compass is, my automatic pilot. It reminds me, hey, that's not where I wanted to go. This is it. Once I am aware that my moral compass is off, it's up to me to bring myself back in. When I've strayed, it's up to me. Now, you would be surprised, truly, you'd be surprised. When I recognize that I'm off of my moral compass, you would be surprised how many conversations I've had with individuals who say, oh, I know, but hopefully I won't get caught. And they don't do anything to fix it. They just pray they're not going to get caught. That is not moral compass. That is somebody who wants to break their moral compass and not have any consequences to that. So once we recognize that we're out of our moral compass, it's my responsibility to bring myself back in. It's mine. My responsibility to bring myself in. Typically, if I am conscious, I want to clean things up. If I'm conscious of it, I'm going to make the effort to bring myself back into my moral compass. Once we recognize that we're off course, we address it and we bring ourselves back into alignment. If I don't do this, then that's where the separation goes between hero and villain. It's just 1 degree, that's it, 1 degree, and before I know it, all my strains go towards the negative instead of the positive. What I want to do is bring myself back into awareness. So my suggestion to you would be, if I can give you a homework assignment, go home tonight and figure out what your moral compass is. Not what your spouse thinks it should be, not what your children, but what do you believe your moral compass is? So those of you who are in relationships, ask your spouse what you think their moral compass is. Don't tell them what their moral compass is. Ask them, what is their moral compass? Maybe you have similar moral compasses and maybe you don't. Maybe you agree on things and maybe you don't. But it's good to be able to recognize the people that are in your lives, where they're coming from, and what stimulates or inspires them. Once you recognize what your moral compass is, then it's up to you to bring yourself back into it. Is everything that I'm doing in my life equal to my moral compass? If not, what can I do? Is my willpower really being to most benefit? Am I being as honest or harmless as I can be? These are good questions to ask yourself. When we have a moral compass, it brings us back into checking ourselves, making sure that we are doing what we want to do, striving towards where we want to achieve. Remember, the intention of Omega is all about personal growth. Moral compasses help us grow. If I have the ability to stick to my moral compass, even though during the trying times, that defines me. My moral compass defines me. Everything that happens to me is an opportunity for me to gain growth. Everything that happens to me is an opportunity for me to gain growth. My moral compass is defined by everything that happens to me. And that's the last thing I have to say. Ooh, we're at 8 o'clock. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the Wednesday workshop. I haven't sent out the newsletter yet. That'll go out tomorrow morning, plus the book review for the month. But I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. I'll be online for Facebook. And then remember, at the end of the month, Omega 4, tell your family and friends, come to Omega 4. Have a good night. Thank you.